How many tens of thousands are you missing out on because you're talking to your accountant once a year? And if you're anything like what we used to be like, that's what we used to do. You know, back at the start of things, probably for the first 3 or 4 years, we used to, call up our accountant and start working on things around now. And the poor old accountant would always say to us, guys, next year, can you call me a bit earlier? Because he's flat out. So what we've gone and done, we've rounded up a superstar. He's actually our accountant, Zubair from Zash Partners. Welcome, brother.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Luke. Good to have you on board. Thanks for having me on board. And it's been a pleasure doing business with you guys over the years.
Yeah, so I mean, we're 8 or 9 years, and I think Luke just said so. A fair way down the track. And of course, we've got Luke Bruce back. You've been on a lot of shows now. Looking forward to it.
Yep, and I've been doing the numbers in this business since day one, so I've made plenty of mistakes and also done plenty of good things.
Yeah, I was very wise back at the start. I ducked for cover on that one. I like communication, having a bit of chat and a bit of fun. Handed the numbers section over to Luke and said, rightio, let's find someone good. My uncle always said to me, he said, there's 3 key people you've got to get in business. You've got to have a really good accountant, you've got to have a really good lawyer, and if you go into business with someone else, make sure you can really trust them. So I've got you two in amongst that, which is very good. So, another year flies by. We've only got 4 weeks till the end of the financial year again here in Australia. So what are some of these cool things that the steel pushers out there should be, doing and should have done possibly, Zubair?
Yeah, great question, Steve. These are unprecedented times at the moment. Look, tax time is always very critical for business owners, especially. This is a time where we get a lot of questions from business owners. Like you mentioned, some people do leave it till last minute. Some are more organized, but this time around, with everything that's happening globally in the Australian markets, this is a very critical phase. Obviously, we'll talk about some of the specific incentives that are there later on, but I think there are certain things which should happen irrespective. In terms of advising clients over the next 4 weeks, there are a number of key factors that business owners need to act on right now. For example, this is a strategy which we often use to advise clients and say, hey, have you thought about how you're invoicing your clients? Have you got a big tax year this year? Is there a possibility where you can defer some of your income into the next financial year? Or are there any suppliers which you know you're going to pay in July? Can you pay them now? Get that tax deduction in this financial year. So those are things that business owners should be looking at. Now, mind you, this year we have the added complication of job keeper payments, and ATO has said that business owners should be careful around changing the nature of their revenue recognition. So be careful of that. But where there is an opportunity, try and defer some of that income or bring forward some of your income if possible. And same with your deductions. If there are suppliers you're going to pay them now. If you have a payroll coming up, pay them, pay your employees, they'll appreciate you for it. And then you get your deduction in this part of the financial year. Same thing around superannuation, for example. Now, this is an obligation that you have. You will pay that in July. We always advise clients to say, look, let's get that super paid in this part of the financial year. Bang, you get your deduction and you get to minimize your tax in the best possible way. There are a number of other things that business owners should be looking at around. I mean, this is a time for rewarding yourselves. You worked hard for the full year. This is the time where you go, right, how much dividend can I draw down from my company? How much money is there that I really put my blood and sweat into it? This is a time to reward yourself. Get those dividend discussions happening now to say, right, what is the excess above and beyond that you can pay yourself at this time of the year? So these are things which you should be talking about in terms of between now and 30 June, they should be acted upon.
I know I had an interesting call from Luke Bruce a couple of weeks ago. He was pretty excited and he'd started scoping out a few things. We thought we needed, a new caravan for the trade shows and expos. That'll be coming up again next year. But Lukey, I know there's been chats about, you always get onto our suppliers around this time of the year. And
Yeah, so we make a habit of prepaying our regular suppliers because obviously with our type of business, we have our online suppliers that we've been dealing with for 5-10 years, and we pretty much know what we're going to pay them next year in advance. And a lot of them offer some quite significant discounts for payment up front. And also, we know we're going to be using those services. We know it's just ongoing for us month to month. So that works out quite well for us. But there's never been a better time to buy assets at the moment. And due to the nature of Machines4U, we can actually see that online. The inquiries that are going through our site for capital equipment at the moment are unprecedented. Like, we're 100% above what we were this time last year. And that's partly due to the growth in our site, but also partly due to the 150K, which is being offered as a tax incentive by the government. Zubair, do you have the details of that tax incentive at the moment?
This is it's actually, and I'm seeing that in my client base as well. It's amazing how different businesses operate. There are some businesses that are sitting there going, there's no work, we don't have anything to do. And people in that same industry are going, we've got so much work at the moment, we need to expand. And we've got people in the transport industry. We've got some transport operators going, oh, there's not much work. I can understand, but the other ones are going, look, we need to go out, we need to buy machinery. There's a lot of government contracts that are due to come out with road and rail constructions. So people are preparing themselves for it. And that 150,000 is at a sweet spot. The government say that is there until 30 June. Maximize on that now. So the way basically it works, you buy an asset up to $150,000, you get a deduction right away. So your income is, say, $1 million, bang, it comes down by 150. And that is an asset which will be very, very handy in terms of growth. It's not about just spending money for tax benefits. This is an asset you need, and businesses are putting that money in. If you're going to buy that in 6 months' time, do it now. That is the whole idea.
Yeah, I've been seeing that, just chatting to quite a few of the bigger machinery dealers around the country, and that's what they've been saying. This tax incentive has worked really well. Of course, a few of them are a bit concerned about what happens on the 1st of July and onwards. And it'll be interesting to see, does the government extend it out, or do they keep it to that? What's your thoughts? Have you had the crystal ball to be?
It is a crystal ball. Nothing has come out at the moment. The government has said it is capped to 30th of June. So, but look, we are in unprecedented times. The government's rolling out a lot of changes along the way. There was a $60 billion error that came up in the JobKeeper program a few days back. So look, the government's overwhelmed, in all fairness. There is a lot happening. So yeah, it is a very interesting space to be in. But at this stage, there's no official announcement of extending that 150K write-off. We used to be in a 30K write-off zone before, but look, now is a time as good as any to start at it. And as a business owner, the idea is to foresee, and that's where you see businesses that are successful and growing versus the businesses that are at a level which they can't grow beyond. It's about oversight, what will happen in 6 months' time, and that's what you should be planning for now, not what's going to happen next month.
Yeah, Luke, we've obviously been in a great position out of this COVID, 3-4 months, where we've obviously kept all our staff and looking at getting a few more, because we're in one of those little growth pockets. People need capital equipment, and of course they couldn't go to the trade shows and bits and pieces, so obviously more people are online. So then the steel pushers are all using us, which is great. But some of the other businesses out there getting grants and bits and pieces for some of their staff that they've had to put off, or they're getting grants for people who are staying with them.
Yeah, look, I think that kind of leads us to the world of massive government bonuses that have been thrown out to deal with this issue. So the first and foremost is JobKeeper program, and I'm sure most business owners would have heard about it already. This is worked really well for some businesses who needed a lifeline, whereby you get up to $3,000 for every employee every month that you continue to hire. There are certain criteria that has to be met, but I'm not going to go into the details of it. I'm sure people would have gone through it, but that is an incentive which has worked really well for most businesses. There are some action items on it though, because the government, the ATO's come out and said, yep, we'll give you that money, but you have to lodge a declaration every month. So the declaration for last month, which is the month of May, needs to go in by the 14th of June. So you've got about a week and a half left to go. I'm sure your accountant would be sore. So make sure you get that declaration in sooner rather than later to make sure that you get the money that you're entitled to. And look, JobKeeper is a program. Like I said, the government's thrown, the initial estimates was $130 billion thrown at it. So it is a program which is working well, but there was an article in the paper this morning. One of the bedding manufacturers is pulled up for audit for $11 million of JobKeeper claim. Now, there will be a lot of activity around ATO on this part. So make sure you have your documentation in place, you're speaking to your accountant, making sure you're doing the right thing. But definitely that is a good incentive for businesses who are eligible for it to capitalize on, together with the 150K cash flow, the 150K asset write-off, because those two are the ones which are seeing a lot of people really using them at the moment.
Got it. Lukey, we'll move on to cash is king, and I think you're a legend for this, because this was back to the old farmer days, wasn't it, where your father was like, you don't go and loan something to buy something, you've got to have the cash before you go and do it. I think it's kept us in good stead. So cash is king.
Yeah, well, I'm actually going to steal a quote for Zubair here, which he told us yesterday: turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash flow is reality. Like, you can have a nicely profitable business, but if your cash flow is in struggles, you're going to have a very bad time. And this is what we're seeing all across Australia. You can see the businesses that have had a little bit of a war chest left over, and they're doing quite well. But the ones that were operating on basically zero cash flow, so pushing everything right to the line each month, they're the ones that have been hit and found themselves in a really bad position, even though their business might be great and they may be operating really, really well. But without that little war chest of cash sitting away, you can't overcome these hurdles. Like, if you don't have a war chest of cash sitting there and you get something like COVID-19 happening, you've immediately got to go to your bank or your finance provider and try and get financing. And of course, it's even more difficult to get financing, or you're not going to get it at the right rate when everyone's been hit. So probably the best thing we ever did in this business, and we were recommended to do it by a very old accountant a long time ago, was create a profit account, which is an account that you don't touch, and just put a little bit in there each month. And you can call it profit, you can call it a war chest, but just having that bit there that you know you can rely on whenever something happens, it's asset protection for your business almost, because your business is your biggest asset.
Yeah, that was some early advice we had on it. It wasn't actually from an accountant, it was from Action Coach. The group, Brad Sugars, we did some training with them for 3 or 4 years, right back at the start. And you're right, that one's kept us in good stead, and it just helps you sleep at night too, knowing it's there, doesn't it? So time's actually flying by, guys. We're going to have to whip off to a quick break. Believe it or not, that is half a show, Zubair. We'll come back after the break and we'll chat some more. We've got some good topics coming up. 3, 2, 1, play. Let the fun begin. Hey, all you steel pushers out there.
Don't miss it, 1 p.m. on Wednesday. Happy with that? Yeah. I reckon it was pretty good one take.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Alright, cool. Go and get your other kid on?
Okay.
And we'll do the other. Yeah, you got some.
Yeah.
I'm talking to Mick doing this. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Alright, 10 seconds. God, there's the bloody kids pissing around.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back, all you steel pushers.
Yeah, you know what David did to the Goliath, right?
Oh, I love the sound of that, Lyndon.
Beat him with a pebble. Knocked him clean the out.
So how did you think you were?
Lawnmowers and small machinery.
Yeah.
heavy gear, big mining, big yellow,
Yeah.
metalworking.
The little one. David, mate.
Hey, not that very little.
Declan, what's your secret to standing out from the crowd on LinkedIn?
G'day steel pushers, here to tell you about next fortnight's Edwards. To a stand.
That director's definitely got one over you, mate.
Mate, don't mock the Santa. I can turn you into an elf just like that. What? That's the way.
This is a topic I've been really looking forward to because there's so many terrible websites out there for you machinery dealers. He's gone from a stream now. Look at the camera.
Stay still.
Seems to be the simplest way to go. So over here, all you steel pushers, buy better and
Sell faster.
Faster.
right on cue. Let us know when
I
you're
don't know
ready.
what to do with my hands.
I was just going to leave it and see how long
Oh,
you
you
guys
can have
stood
a
there
bit of
looking at the
that.
camera for.
All right, welcome back, steel pushers. This guy knows a thing or two, and that's why we're with him. I remember back at the start, you know, the first 3 or 4 years, I think we went through about 6 accountants, and you know, you've really got to look around and you got to find one who suits you too, because back in those early days, I used to hate going to those meetings. You know, you'd turn up and then straight into the numbers. For me, it's a bit about communication, a bit about fun, a bit about our goals. And I think you've done us pretty well in that light, Zubair, of working in with us and what we're actually trying to achieve in this business.
Thanks.
Talk to me a little bit more about the cash flow. What are some other key things that, you know, some of the steel pushers could be doing?
Oh, look, I think at this point in time where we are, cash flow is so critical. It always is for a business, and like Luke touched on before, this is the time where you really have to manage, like we discussed earlier about prepaying some of your invoices. You really have to factor in what cash are you left behind and what the best use is. Having tools around managing your cash flow, around projecting your cash flow is very important. A lot of business owners we see is like, okay, I know cash flow, I've got this much in your bank account. Have you projected what your bank account will look like in 12 months time? What tools are you investing in? And with this all move towards technology, it has become a lot easier with softwares like Xero and add-ons that you can get with it. It becomes a lot easier, but you need someone to drive that process on a regular basis to make sure you're on top of it.
Yeah, I think in the first, you know, we've probably been on Xero for maybe 7 or 8 or 9 years as well. I think Luke's hooked up about 60 or 70 companies to go to Xero. He was a spokesperson for them. He just loved it when we put it in, you know, back in the early days of MyOb, and then we moved to Xero. I think that helped us, you know, be able to match everything back to the site and everything. Luke, big fan of Xero.
Well, Xero automated a lot of our accounting to a point, you know, and it took a lot of the human error out of it, but it also gave us a lot of flexibility and enabled us to get a lot more visibility on what our numbers actually were. Otherwise, you do end up spending your time staring at a lot of spreadsheets, and spreadsheets don't work for a lot of business owners. You know, not everyone can just look at the numbers and crunch the numbers and be happy with that. So Xero and the plugins that have been available for it is like a lot of the online softwares now for accounting. They do give you a lot more insight, and you can see your lines, whether they're going up or whether they're going down, and you can see the trends that result from what you're actually doing in the business. And that's really helpful.
And I guess that's the other thing for us. I mean, obviously we used to be in Melbourne and we could just go down the road and always have our face-to-face meetings. So Zoom's been huge for us. I mean, that's why we've stayed together, Zubair. You know, we've got Xero there, we've got Zoom there. We have these regular catch-ups once a month, which works for me, helps me sleep better through the month, just knowing what's going on and all our numbers are taken care of. So what are some of the other bits and pieces people can be doing for, you know, obviously individuals? You know, the individual tax is obviously a little bit different from the company tax, but it does blend in together. But what are some of the things that steel pushers out there can be doing?
Sure. I think, look, this is an area again which coming to 30 June, everyone will be looking at lodging a tax return, whether you are a business owner or a salaried employee. So you have your basic stuff around home office expenses, especially at this time around. A lot of businesses have moved away from their offices and gone into working from home. So you've got to really capitalize on your home office expenses. The ATO's come out and issued a higher rate as well at 80 cents an hour. But there are different methodologies, but making sure you keep your logs around how many hours you work from home and your expenses on that. So making sure you can capitalize on those deductions. One thing which is really big at the moment, and I think it's important, a lot of people from our client base has found value in, is around superannuation. So obviously you have your employer, or if you're self-employed, you can contribute an amount up to $25,000 in super. So that is something which, again, creates your passive wealth while you are in business. And at the same time, you have an opportunity to get a tax deduction out of it. An added thing around superannuation is with the current government incentive, where they're allowing people to draw down $10,000 or $20,000 between now and September. So that is something that people can capitalize on. Go back to your super funds and say, hey, can I get some of that money out? I'm not saying you can go back and put that money in the next day and get a tax deduction. I didn't say that. But look, I'll leave that up to you to decide and talk to your advisors. But look, if the primary intent is you want to just get a tax deduction out of it, don't do it, but there could be other reasons why. But look, drawing down on super or contributing back into super is something that people should be looking at. And negative gearing, and I think this is something which has been there, and I think a lot of people use it, having an investment property and renting it out. It creates your passive wealth. Interest is very cheap these days. It's only at about 2.19%. So if you are a person, we do come across a lot of businesses and owners, they say, look, I would stay away from debt, which is fine. But if you are a person who has been in that game and you want to create a portfolio, that is something to consider at this time as well. Property market, look, you know how it has been up and down, but again, look at where you are. If there is a bargain, that this is an opportunity to consider. And it comes with substantial tax benefits as well along the way. So for an individual, like I said, superannuation, negative gearing, there are two proper tax planning tools. Apart from that, you have your home office, your vehicle. If you are a sales manager or someone, you're on the road a lot, make sure you have a logbook, you claim your car expenses. A lot of people are doing a lot of training and education at this time of the year. So gear yourself up, get your deduction in before 30 June.
Yeah, and don't do what some of those horror stories are going through the news at the moment of people going getting the old super and jumping on the old gambling apps and having a fair crack, and a few horror stories there. Going straight down Dan Murphy's and stocking up the fridge.
Correct.
Crikey, that's going to run yourself into all sorts of trouble. Lukey, wealth creation. Zubair, the thing I like about him is he's not just looking in the old revision mirror, because I know a lot of accountants are. He likes to get that crystal ball out there on his desk and look a bit to the future. You got a couple of ideas of wealth creation?
Look, I think this is where your relationship with your accountant needs to go beyond the annual catch up. We get some clients who go, and every time we win a new client, we ask the question, why are you changing accountants? And the number one, every single time, my accountant's not telling me anything than what I should be doing. It almost is a two-way street, and you need to take control of that relationship. And we work together with clients where, and not one hat fits everyone. I mean, some business owners have very different financial goals to others. And whilst you are in business, you need to make sure that your advisors, whether it's your lawyers, whether it's your accountants, whether it's your financial planners, they are on the same page as you. I mean, I recently had a client who went, look, we want to pay off our house. We don't want to do, I know I could use my money and buy 5 investment properties, but my focus is I want to do that. Now, generally as accountants, we would try and go, oh, look, this is what you can do. But it's important to make sure your advisor's on the same page and tailor that advice to every single business owner, because everyone will be different. And the idea is to create that passive wealth while you are in business. And if that paying off your house, you've got that security that this is paid off, no one can touch it. This is my asset. And now is a good time as any to start looking. Like I said, the share market took an absolute hammering at the start. It's come back up a fair bit. Again, I'm not giving out any financial advice, But look, keep your eyes and ears open. See if there is any investments that you can put your money in now, which will create that passive investment and passive income for you down the line. That is the whole idea. So, and you will. Some businesses have come up to a lot of cash because of this current crisis. People have a lot of money which they might not have next year or the year after. So the time is now to wisely think about how you maximize that, how you use that money. So I think that's very critical.
What about the gold bars at the moment, Zubair? Are they going all right?
They should be going all right.
Zubair gave me a bit of advice, and he this is for everyone, that he said, gold's a bit low at the moment, so I wouldn't bought it. It was one of the best investments I've ever done, Zubair. I was so proud of myself.
There you go.
Never actually got to see it. I didn't pick it up. I just left it in there and then picked it over a year later. I'd done pretty well, so that was very good.
Right.
Lukey, what's some things you've done based around that wealth creation?
Well, with wealth creation, it's like if you ask any business owner, they'll probably give you the top 3 goals they've got for their business and what revenue they want to get to, what profit they want to get to, how much they want to sell, how many machines they want to move. And you ask them about their personal financial goals, and half of them, because they spend all their time focused on the business, they don't really know, and they've kind of forgotten that they're in business to actually fund their own life, So with wealth creation, for me, I've never been the guy that wants to be a billionaire, but doing it myself and putting a few goals in, I managed to get a house for my parents. I managed to save the family farm, and that's a lot more rewarding than just owning a bunch of rental properties somewhere. So it depends what really motivates you. And you got to remember why you're in business at the end of the day, because your business will take so much of your time and keep you focused on a lot of negative things. You've actually got to pull yourself out and do a weekend and focus on your own personal wealth goals and where you want to be.
Yeah, I know we had an interesting conversation a couple of weeks ago where I wanted to pay down quite a bit of my house and you guys didn't want to, but I stuck to my goals. And it was on my dream board, and I locked it in, and then all of a sudden you two started finding good reasons why I should actually pay it off, which my wife was very happy, because for us, we like to know that, we're paying it off, and it's not this thing that's going to drag out for the next 30 years. And, so you're right, it's all up to the individual. Geez, time's flying by, but what's some quality questions, Zubair? Give us a couple of quality questions that people should be asking their accountant.
Absolutely. Look, I think, like I said, the relationship with your accountant, it will be, accountants, we like to feel we are Supermans and we are the ones who will be saving the world. But look, your accountant might not have the answer to everything, but it's important to have that relationship as a first point of contact. Normally, business owners contact us for the fundamentals. So like, how do I manage my cash? How do I keep my costs down? And those are very important aspects of it. But you need to, as an advisor, you need people who will guide you beyond your day-to-day accounting and compliance part of it. We have a document which we released out, and which we'll share. I'm happy to share with everyone. It's called 101 Questions to Ask Your Accountant, and that goes through different sub areas that you should be working with your accountant with. So, like I said, fundamental is one. Finance. Now, your accountant might not know anything about getting you what kind of a loan you should be getting at, but that is the discussion whether you should have, whether you are looking at raising some capital for your business, whether you go to the bank, whether you bring in a business owner, you want to buy some more machinery, you want to stock up. Where do you get that excess source of funds from? That is very critical, and your accountant should be playing a part in it. Legal is another part of it. Do you have the proper contracts in place? Are you working in a partnership? Do you have a buy-sell agreement with your business partner? Touch wood, all goes well. What happens if one person just has a change of heart? How do you deal with that kind of a scenario? So those are all heavy topics, but people should be thinking about it, not just between now and 30 June, but this is something which should be on everyone's mind at all times. Technology, I think that is something which is so critical. And like I said, in my client base, we're seeing that now, where businesses that have invested in technology, who have spent money on online advertising, gone onto online platforms, they are coming out way miles ahead than other businesses who haven't been so proactive in that space. So technology is something definitely, and like I said, your accountant should be guiding you towards what kind of return are you getting on your marketing budget. So these are the things which you should be asking yourself.
I'm going to add that into Mick Brown's conversation this afternoon when we're talking about a few more exciting marketing things he's wanting to do. So that's good timing, actually, Zubair. So time's flowing. You've given us actually a pretty decent summary there. And remember, old Kerry Packer said, if you're not keeping your taxes down, you probably want to be, because, you know, these governments, I think, have done a good job over the last 3 or 4 months, but they don't always spend our money as wisely. So let's all put some energy and effort in this area and, you know, get onto a good accountant. If you're not feeling right about your accountant at the moment, have some quality conversations and look around and go and find one that suits you. Because, you know, over the years, I've actually enjoyed our meeting. I know some of them end up being a bit of counselling sessions for Luke and myself, but I think we've worked in good stead, and, you know, and it becomes a bit of fun and excitement. And then, you know, as long as you've got all these things in place, you know, that numbers area of the business, you feel a lot better with. So thank you for your time today, Zubair.
Pleasure.
Thank you for jumping in again, Luke Bruce. Over at Machines4U, we buy better.
Sell faster.
Well done, Lukey. See you guys.